Let's get after it. There you go.
Welcome to the Gold Medal Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Payne, along with my co-host, Chris Asher. And today we're joined by track and field legend Steve Lewis. Steve, thanks for coming on the program.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Thanks, Steve. My man. There he is.
All right, to start off, talk about your early years and when you started running youth track for the LA Jets and Coach James.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in LA, South Central LA, and I was always the fastest kid on the block, right? I went to Hyde Park Elementary School, and I was actually approached by the founder of the Los Angeles Jets. Then I believe it was the West Vernon Jets, Ronald Moore. And so Ronald Moore started the Jets for the men's side, boys side. And he asked if I wanted to, run for the Jets. I'm like, oh, well, I do, but let me ask my mother first.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, she said, yeah, you go run, keeping you off the street, out of trouble. And so there you have it. I started, and our coach there was Coach James Robertson. So we trained at Crenshaw High School on the dirt track. And that's pretty much on that dirt track is where I learned how to be a front runner because, even when it rained, the next day we're on the track, muddy track, whatever. And I didn't want cats kicking mud in my face, so I ran in the front. So that's where I learned how to be a front runner. My time.
That's interesting because I only knew you guys trained at Rancho, so you guys were.
No, that was much later. As a matter of fact, I never ran. Maybe. Well, you know what? Only time I ran at Rancho is Coach James got me ready for juniors, but that was in high school. But
okay.
My formal years with the Jets was all Crenshaw dirt track. Okay. Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
How was your early career with the Jets? I mean, I know a lot about you. We know each other, but I don't know that much about your early youth career. Talk about that.
It was so I started with the Jets when I was 9 years old, and we had squad. So the Jets, we were, there are many teams there now, but we were come in force. We had the biggest boys and girls, most kids, and we used to have to compete to make the relays, the A relays. We would put together A, B, C relay teams to go into meets. And if you were in the top four, you weren't going to be on it. So in our practices, we would go at it. We had some cats out there, man, we used to go at it. And I would always, in training, I'm in the front. I wanted to make that A team. And so obviously in age group track, back then you had 9 and under, and then 10, 11, 11, 12. So, whenever I was at the bottom of the age group, even though I was fast for my age, I would still have to compete with the older kids and try to make that spot. So, it was a race in practice. And we used to travel, and, we used to, Coach Moore didn't play. Ronald Moore, he didn't play, man. If we didn't act right, he'd pull that belt out. I never got whooped or anything like that, but he would scare us, and even James Robertson, he had to, put me in my place a couple of times. I was a wild kid back then, but it was great, man. I loved to travel. The parents, it was a single mom. My mother, raised me and my brothers, so she loved it. Mr. Moore would come pick me up from home and all the other kids, and we'd go to the meets. We'd hit the road for the track meets and had our lunch, potted meat, tuna sandwiches, whatever it is, right? We'd be all day at the meet running, whatever. And back then I started 100 meters. All runners want to be a 100 meters. I want to be a sprinter because it's short, it's over, it's quick. So I started off as a 100-meter runner. And I was good. I won. And then so Coach James said, let's try the 200. So I won the 200. So, okay, let's try the 400. Started winning the 400. Tried to push me to that 800. I'm like, nah, man. And so I kind of stuck with the 400. That became my specialty. And, the rest is history. But yeah.
I always laugh at that because I know Coach James. And
oh, man.
Coach James is known for pushing everyone to the 800 and then going down. So that's why when you said 800, we had Granville and all these people. Like
Obi kept, he had Obi. Obi kept going. Had Obi in that 15 too. I'm like, man, but Obi can run. He had that range. Obi was 100, 200, 400, 8, whatever. He can run it. I had to stop at the quarter. That was it, man. I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So that was it, man. We traveled as a team together, and I mean, it definitely was great for me. Kept me out of trouble, and that was my family. I mean, James was like another father. He was actually my father figure, really, for all of us kids, right? As boys, man, just trying to. I mean, he was a positive influence on us, obviously, because he didn't play. I mean, he was serious. And that's where I learned discipline and commitment, just being out there with my teammates on the track with James there. So that's where it started, really.
Became a two-time CIF state champion. So talk more about your high school years.
Yeah, the high school thing. So it's interesting. So I started high school. I went to Banning, right? That's when they were bused. I was living in LA, but they bused me to Banning. And I ran, actually, I made it to state my sophomore year at Banning, and I did all right. But then we moved up to Northern California. My mother took a job with her company and moved to Fremont, California, up near Oakland. And I don't think the coaches there realized what they had, right? I mean, I was, coming from LA, and I was, had a record. I mean, I was a really good quarter miler, and fortunately, there was a guy up there, Demetrius Carter, up at American High School, is where I went. He was a quarter mile, and we became training partners. And actually, he was really good because even my junior year, he was a senior. I won the state meet that year, and Demetrius placed 5th, which was pretty cool to have somebody to train with. And we had a pretty decent mile relay. But no, it was so American High School, Fremont. I won the state meet my junior year. And the next year, came back to defend the title. And there was a bit of a controversy, I should say.
That's what I was going to ask you about. That's the story. I went to Hawthorne. So I went to Hawthorne. So you would hear the story about the Steve Lewis and the false start.
Well, false start. I mean, they make you come out the race. But so the story behind it, obviously, I heard cameras clicking, right? So that's why I started early. And but Travis Hannum was in that race, right? And let me tell you, they put me back in that race after they say I false started. And, I felt like obligated to go out there and just kill it, right? Because the crowd, when they tried to take me out of the race, right? The official said, you false started, you're out. And the crowd, this is in Sacramento, went crazy. I mean, it was surreal. They were booing and just screaming and yelling, let them run, put them in. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And it got so bad that the officials kind of got together and so anyway, the official story is that I heard cameras clicking, and that's what caused me to false start. And I ran and went out like a bat out of hell and won the race. Now, Kai Courtney, who was this Hawthorne coach, he protested and because Travis took second, he figured, oh yeah, Travis would have won. And I think Hawthorne still won the meet for the men's, but Kai Courtney, bless his heart, he did not like that, so he protested, didn't have anything happen. But yeah, I won that race and with the controversy, and so I, back-to-back state titles. I think I ran a 46.6 that day, but yeah, that was.
I just always remember that story and reading this
state
meeting. And it was just as you said. Oh wow! Oh, the crowd went crazy. Oh, they went crazy. But they won the state meeting, and you were the best. So I'm pretty sure.
I would have won.
Travis knew, but he had a great career too. So
he did. He did. But it was crazy. I mean, high school track is no joke. I mean, the fans are serious.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. We in our earlier interviews with people, we talked about the gambling in the stands at the state meet.
Oh, it's a whole lot going on. Yeah. I think it's a lot of they're not drinking just Gatorade and water in there. I'll tell you that. It's the state meets are something else. It's funny. Yeah.
So talk more about your recruiting process and how you ultimately landed at UCLA.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously, you get 5 recruiting trips, right? Living in LA, at least back then, you either wanted to go to USC or UCLA. And I really wanted to go to UCLA, particularly at that time because they had a lot of, it was a big powerhouse there. Kevin Young was there, later world record holder in the intermediates, Danny Everett, Henry the Heat Thomas from Hawthorne. Mike Marsh, and on the female side, Gail Devers. I mean, just that history with FloJo and Jackie and Willie Banks and Greg Foster. I'm like, UCLA is where I wanted to be. But they hadn't approached me. So I went and started taking my recruiting visits. I went to LSU, recruiting visit, love that. And went to Texas A&M. I just remember eating a lot of steak on my recruiting trip. I remember going to the cafeteria and it was just red meat everywhere. But that was a great recruiting trip. Had a lot of fun. I'm trying to think who my host was there. Derek Florence at Texas A&M, and then at LSU was Bernard Williams Blade. He was my host there. And I also took a trip to Kansas, the Jayhawks. And I actually liked the campus. The problem is they brought me in there when it was still snow on the ground. And that I couldn't comprehend that. So I didn't, I was not going to be on my list. But so that was 3 trips. And then my 4th trip is I went to USC. And George Porter was my host there. And that was great. I remember George took me to the Florentine Gardens. It was a club in Hollywood. And I mean, I danced the night away, and I'm like, man, and I remember we did a lot of walking. I don't know why. We were walking the streets of Hollywood and it was just, my feet were hurting. But anyway, that was the recruiting trip, right? And again, so I was close to signing to USC, right? And, but I really wanted to go to UCLA. And I'm like, man, they didn't call me. And the last minute, I get a call from UCLA, Coach John Smith, head coach Bob Larson, and they said they wanted to fly up to. So I was living in Fremont, so they both flew up to Fremont, California, and in the living room with my mom and I, they offered me a full ride. So I said yes, and I was a Bruin, so that's how it happened. But I almost was a Trojan, believe it or not.
I got it. Yeah. Steve, I've been head coach and coached collegiately for years.
Yeah.
And I missed out some recruits, but you were 2-time state champion.
Yeah,
I'm flabbergasted by this story. I'm like, and I know Bob and John. Did they not contact you? I'm like, this is like brand new after all these years. That doesn't make no sense at all. Like.
Yeah, and I figured they had a lot of quarter milers there. They had Henry and Danny, and I remember Anthony Washington was another quarter.
Yeah.
So maybe they figured they had enough. I don't know.
That is amazing. This is why I like doing this podcast, because I'm like, this is some amazing things I'm sure people don't know. Because I'm just like, they had to be. I would have thought they were the first school that rushed out to you.
Man, I was hoping and praying that they would reach out, and it was. And I'm trying to think, did they come out before the state? So I was already the state meet champion for my junior year, and they might have came out before my state meet that senior year. So probably late spring. But I was still, I was the state champion in California. So you figure UCLA would recruit the California, state champion, right? But they didn't, and until late. And I almost signed the USC.
Well, back then, and I think back then they had an early signing period, November period. Did you even consider, so in November, did you and your mom consider, hey man, these are people calling me, let's look at this and take this? Or was you guys like,
I was recruited everywhere. I mean, but I didn't really want to leave the state, so I had a lot of offers outside of the state. But UCLA I was waiting, and USC was real. I mean, it was close. Almost a Trojan. Yeah. Almost a Trojan. Close. Close. Really close. Yeah. It worked out. It worked out in the end, though. But either school would have been great, actually. But there was just so much history at UCLA. I just had to do it.
Your freshman year, you battled through some injuries. Then you come back and win the gold medal at the 1988 Seoul Summer Olympic Games. So talk more about the incredible success you had as a true freshman.
That was the crazy year. So again, I came in. So I had never lifted weights until I got to UCLA. I didn't lift weights in high school. So they had a pretty good program in the weight room. But I didn't know it was, I think at the time we were sponsored by Adidas. I remember getting all my gear, I mean, it was just the coolest thing. I had my sweats, the shoes. I remember going to practice. And I'm out there not really knowing what I'm doing. I'm just doing whatever the coach is telling me to do. I think I was a little naive because I would go out there and train with Danny Everett, Kevin Young, Mike Marsh, Henry Thomas, and I would just stay with him. I ran with him. I'm like, I'm just gonna do what you're doing, and I mean, we ran repeat 600s, the 800s, thousands in the fall. So I had a really good fall base training I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I had never experienced anything like that really. I mean, I compare it a little bit to kind of, James Robertson's training philosophy, because it was, you got to run long, because when you're running those longer distances, at least for me, it not only built me up physically, but mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you had to run, I mean, John Smith would have us run these thousands or 600s in the fall at a pretty slow pace, but consistent pace. So if you can imagine, he would say, I want you to run this 800, for example, but I want you to run each 100 in, I don't know, 16 seconds, whatever it is. So yeah. it was harder to run it slow and then maintain it throughout, right? And that really was building us up physically, but also mentally, because it was just to try to keep that pace. Boom, 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 and he's in the middle of the track on the board. So that was just new to me. And then we, progressed through the season. We run the 600s, but that fall training was a beast for me. But I responded to it well. And then February came around, and I started having serious shin splint problems. And John took me off the track. I started to do some other stuff, some pool work. But I remember I was supposed to go compete at Modesto that or whatever, but I couldn't. I think I still went, but I couldn't compete. So I was literally off the track for some weeks. And not, mind you, this is 88 right now, right? So so I'm thinking to myself, by the way, I'm not even thinking Olympics at that. I mean, I'm literally there as a freshman. I'm training. Olympics was not even something I was thinking about, really. I'm just training and just, I'm going to class. And I'm like, okay, well, shin splint problem. That's fine. We'll work through it. So I would show up every day and I would do my therapy and what have you, ice it and do all that. And I missed some races. And about a few weeks before Pac-10 at the time, it was called Pac-10, which was at Drake, I started to come around. I started training again. I started feeling good, back on the track with my teammates. Danny was training well with him and Kevin Young. And here we are, Pac-10s. You'll see this race on YouTube, but so they put me in the 400 meters. I'm 19. I just turned 19. My birthday was in May, and I'm in this 400 meter with Danny Everett. Now, Danny had already had a lot of experience internationally, and he's run some really fast times in the 44s and all that. So again, it's naive. I mean, I would just go. When Danny go, I'd go. We complement each other. We ran well together. So needless to say, in this race, I took it out. I think I was on I can't remember if I was inside of Danny. Maybe I was inside of Danny. And I went out fast in that 200 meters, first 200, and I was still on Danny. I was still on him. He went out. He might have went out like low 21s, 21.1, 21.2 maybe, and I'm on him. And then we're coming off the curve, and I'm a little ahead of me, but I stayed on him. In fact, you can hear the crowd just like yelling, and Danny and I separated from the pack, right? And we're just going down the home stretch. I stayed on him until I couldn't. And Danny crossed the line 44.3, and I crossed the line in 44.65, and I tied the world junior record at that meet. And which nobody expected, right? This is like world junior record. And so that's when I was like, wow, this, maybe the Olympics, right? And so we continued to train. And then actually that same meet, I ran the mile relay. And John must have trusted me because we took pride in our mile relay at UCLA. And he put me on anchor, but Danny didn't run. Kevin Young didn't run. Henry Thomas didn't run. He put like my buddy Derek Knight, I think he ran first leg. Mike Wisnowski, second leg. Washington, third leg, and I got the baton behind. And I ran down Gordon Bugg, and we won. I think my split was a 43-9 or 43-8 or something like that. So that was my coming out party per se, right? And after that, we went on to the NCs. I took second to Danny in the 400 meters, and our mile relay with the team, a quartet of myself. I led off to Kevin Young, to Danny Everett, to Henry Thomas. We were the first team to go sub 3 minutes in the mile relay. Going up against Florida, that was with Dennis Mitchell, Mark Everett. We used to talk smack that whole year, back and forth. We never connected Florida and UCLA until the NCs, and it was a battle. But we went under 3. So that was that freshman year, and then that summer, I went to Europe. I tied the world junior record again. My time ran 44.65. Went on to the Olympic trials. Again, 4 rounds. The first round, it's funny. The first round of the Olympic trials, I false started. But at that time, they did not disqualify you if you false started.
Yeah.
Right. So just imagine if that was the case. So anyway, I advanced to the second round, and I remember when I was in my blocks, Carl Lewis, who was my Santa Monica teammate, I just remember him just kind of encouraging me at that start. You got this, right? And I went out there in that second round, and I broke the world junior record again. It was like a 44.6 something. Advanced to the semifinal round, and I broke the world junior record again, ran 44.11. And I'm now in the final, and I'm thinking all I got to do is place top 3. So I'm in there, of course, with Butch Reynolds and Danny Everett, and I'm hoping to get a spot. And so in the final, Butch ended up winning, and Danny took second, and I placed third. So I made the team, which is all I needed to do. And that was it for that year, to making the 88 Olympics, and then of course, the 88 Olympics. But yeah, that was my freshman year at UCLA. It was a lot.
That's incredible for people who don't know. First of all, Steve on the team. Steve didn't even talk about the 4x1.
Oh, I learned that too. Yeah.
Henry Thomas.
Yeah.
He had Kevin Young.
People don't know
Danny Everett. I was already going. Kevin Young was a walk-on. So think about that.
Yeah, he's walk-on.
Derek Knight.
Mike Marsh. So Kevin was a walk-on, and I think Henry got a full ride. Danny had a full ride. Mike Marsh got half scholarship, but they still went to UCLA. Came to UCLA, right? And so maybe that's why they didn't give me. They didn't come after me earlier. Like, we got enough quarter milers and sprinters. We don't. You want to come here and just pay your own way, I guess, maybe. But
I'm gonna tell you this story. Kai Courtney would say this. He said that Henry was the big fish. Everybody was. You guys were all big fish, but he said UCLA ran out of scholarships because you guys had, I think, Brian Bluetrich in the shot put.
Yeah, we had good throws. Yeah.
But Mike Marsh came off the blue late and won the state meet. Henry had that appendix attack.
That's right.
And he said that Mike Marsh was a walk-on to UCLA the first year. He said, let's just come the first year and we'll give you a scholarship. And then I think Mike Marsh won the Pac-10.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, but Kevin Young was like a walk-on, and then he's the NCAA. You guys had an incredible team.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It's awesome. Just thinking about it. And our training sessions were just legendary. I mean, people would come from all over to just watch us run, particularly when we would run 350s. We'd, sit up on the top of the curve, and it was like a shootout. A lot of times, so most of the time we'd run them by ourselves, right? So, we're trying to run faster than the next guy, right? And we just, it was crazy, those 350s, man. It was a showdown. It was a showdown.
So after the Seoul Olympics, you go back to UCLA, attend class, and still compete as a student athlete. So talk about the rest of your collegiate career and what that journey was like leading to your second Olympics.
Okay, so back up. So after 88, so again, I made the team, ended up winning the Olympics that year in Korea. In lane 6, so before the Olympics that same year, after I won the trials, I went to Zurich, Switzerland. Butch Reynolds broke a world record on us. I think it was 43.29. Yeah. And like, whoa, if you've been in a race and somebody broke a world record, that sticks with you. So we went back to train, back to the drawing board, and we had to get ready. Danny and I, we were training partners, ready for Seoul. And, Danny was just probably, we were fierce rivals, competitors, but we were best friends. we would, room together, traveling, and we trained together. He encouraged me, I encouraged him, and hey, and he told me to say, Steve, before my race in '88, mind you, he's in lane 4. Hey, go out there and run your best race. There's nothing more you can do that's going to make you any faster at this point. Just go out there and execute. And that's my competitor telling me this before the '88 final. And Butch Reynolds was in lane 2. Innocent Egwuonike was to my outside. I called him the rabbit. And I think because of I ran the perfect race in '88. And Innocent was to my outside. He took everybody out, and I usually go out anyway, so I kind of stuck with him. I don't think Butch realized I was that far out, and I don't know, he was in lane 2, and so I kind of took it out, and then I came off the curve, and by the time Butch came out the curve, and I was ahead of Danny, and I just held on to the end, and so, I'm crossing the finish line in front, and it was just crazy. Took my victory lap, and so now I'm the Olympic champion, right? A beautiful thing. Bob Costas interviewed me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just a young kid, and I remember him interviewing me. He said, "Well, what's next?" Right? In the interview, and I'm like, "Well, I got to go back to UCLA, go to class," which I did, right? So now I'm back on campus, and I was in the dorms, but I had to move out and get my own apartment, and yeah, I mean, I was just, I still, it was all about the education for me, really. And so I would go to class, and here's another crazy story most people don't know. So I was living in an apartment in Palms, right, not far from UCLA, and at that time I had 2 gold medals, and I used to keep them in my nightstand next to my bed. And I came home from practice one day, noticed that somebody had broke the door down in my apartment, and a lot of my stereo stuff was taken. I went to the bedroom because I'm like panicking about my medals. I run into the bedroom. Again, this is my year back after '88. Sophomore year. I run into the bedroom, and the medals were out of the drawer that I left them in. They were still in. They were on my bed. So they took, whoever was in there took the medals out of the drawer, looked at them, whatever they saw, and they left them sitting on my bed in the case, opened up. And that's what I saw. And that was just the craziest thing. They took everything else. They did take my Olympic ring, which was in the drawer as well, but they left my medals. And after that, I moved the medals and put them somewhere else.
Safe deposit box.
Well, I ultimately did, but two days later, they came back. And I guess they realized, they left something, and they didn't get them. And I just remember at my time, my teammates, my teammate Chucky Brooks he's a hot mess. But anyway, I don't even know if I called the police then, right? I think Chucky gave me something. I still stayed there that night, right, hoping somebody would come in. Anyway, but after that, I put into a safety deposit box, and but then now, so I'm back on campus, taking classes and training, because obviously I'm thinking I can be better, I can be stronger, I can run faster. But in 1990, 2 years after that '88 Olympic victory, I came down with some virus. I was sick for a year. I couldn't train. I lost weight, went to all these doctors. They couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And I was just really weak. And I would still try to go out to the track and train, but it just was, I just couldn't train. So I figured, man, that's the end of my career, right? And I'm like, what do I do now? I still had school. I'm still going up, those hills at UCLA. But I just couldn't run. I couldn't compete. I was just too weak. And that went on for a year, right? But as suddenly as that sickness or illness came on me, it went away. And now, 1991, I'm now trying to get ready for the '92 Olympics, right? So I missed a year being sick and weak. And can I get strong enough to try to make another team and defend my title? Well, at '91, I actually switched coaches. I left John Smith to go train with Joe Douglas of Santa Monica Track Club, Danny and I both. And we were now getting ready to run the '92 Olympics. So I did give UCLA 3 years. I ran for UCLA, for 3 years. I won the NCs my junior year, but that was it. So that was the end of my collegiate career after my junior year, and then now I was, AKA what kind of pro, whatever that means. But
yeah. Can we go back a second, Steve? What was it like? I remember I was in ninth grade. Alexander, AJ may not have been born, but I remember. And what was it like going back to campus as Olympic gold medalist? Because that Olympics, I believe, was in September, right? So UCLA probably started school. What was it like going back to campus and then competing as a collegiate? That's something I think. Like, now you're an Olympic gold medalist and you're back at UCLA on scholarship.
It's well, two things. I wish NILs were around then, right. But it was. I mean, I did feel like it was kind of weird, particularly at the competitions, because now whenever I would compete, like after the Olympics, the announcers were like, "Oh, gold medalist Steve Lewis," and it was just weird. It was just I didn't feel it was the best, right? So I felt no stress, no pressure. In competitions, I mean, it was just crazy, and then I would just run the relays here and there and run open race, But actually the year I came back in '89, I was injured a lot that year. I had hamstring problems, so I didn't run a lot of races. But then the following year I ran. But just from a competition standpoint, it was a trip. I
imagine you had to move. I imagine you were planning on going back to the dorms, and then you probably get mobbed, and you that's because you said you got an apartment. I'm thinking I had a dorm and I had to get out campus.
Yeah, I did. That's why, because when I did, I would have people always come into my room and talking, and so that's why I actually ended up leaving the dorms to get an apartment, because it did get kind of crazy. But it was fun. I mean, it was great. I mean, and so I was an Olympic athlete, but I mean, I'm on the campus with, our football squad, great, the basketball, so we just all connected, all the other athletes, and it was just, during that time, UCLA was great. The athletes, we all kind of hung out, and it was fun. It was fun. Good times. Yeah.
1992, you attend your second Summer Olympic Games in Barcelona, which is the year of the Dream Team. So talk more about what it was like being part of that Special Olympic squad on USA.
Yeah, the Dream Team. So this is I'm now the defending champion. Mm-hmm. And with that comes some sort of VIP and some. So I remember being before the opening ceremonies. I remember being kind of backstage with some other kind of high elite athletes, and particularly the Dream Team. So Michael Jordan and Magic and Bird and Charles Barkley and Drexler. I remember I was having a conversation as we were walking out the tunnel, going out into the stadium. I was walking with Barkley, and it reminded me of that commercial with Mean Joe Green, right? I'm looking up and talking to him. We're talking, but we're walking in together. It was 92 was great. Now I didn't stay in the Village in 92. Okay. I did stay in the Village, the Olympic Village, in '88, but '92 we had a separate. My team, Santa Monica and we had a separate kind of villa that we stayed in. But I would go to the Olympic Village a lot, and the Olympic Village is great. It's like a mini. It's you got a microcosm of the greatest athletes. Yeah. And we had our own security, but it's secured. It was just, it had your own McDonald's, they had bowling alleys and all that, right? But great experience. But particularly with the Dream Team there, that was memorable. Definitely memorable. Yeah.
That was phenomenal for people who know the Olympics. I would say that I'm an Olympic historian. You had Carl Lewis.
Oh yeah.
Won the long jump that year, Mike Powell, but Carl in the relay. You had Kevin Young break the world record. Yeah. You had, that Gail Devers that year? I think that might have been her first. Maybe I'm wrong, but you had yourself, Quincy.
Mike
but then
Marsh.
you had the Dream Team, Charles Barkley. Like that was a historic, and then it was at a place that everyone loved, Barcelona.
Barcelona was nice, yeah.
If you see the Michael Jordan documentary, the one that just came out on Netflix, especially during COVID, he talks a lot about the Olympics and the Barcelona experience.
Yeah.
So that's why we were like, Steve, what was it like? To me, that seemed like it had to be just a huge rock star show.
It was, yeah. And the obviously the fans loved it. Media loved it. We loved it. So, we were, so track, swimming. I mean, we were like elite in our level, but when we got around like Dream Team, it was just like, whoa, so it was cool experience, man. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they were ecstatic to be around you. You were the defending gold medalist. Them dudes.
Well, they were.
Like,
it's funny you say it
because
they
they were looking at you. This guy is the captain
yeah.
of the team. You do the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
Like, this dude won in '88.
Yeah, they respected the other athletes, the elite athletes for sure. Yeah. It's crazy because you call the Olympics like an amateur event, but it really how could it be when you have professional, right? So they need to change that, but it was cool. We got a lot of respect from them. Obviously, we respected them, and they respected us, and it was great. It was great.
Did you get a chance to go to their events, or are they going to your events? Because I know, like, for track's the last part, and the gold medal part. So you're focusing, like, I remember talking to Leroy Burrell. You guys had Santa Monica. You guys had your Ville. So you're focusing on, I got to win.
Yeah.
Thing. But did you have a chance to experience any of it? When you weren't competing?
A little bit, but I mean, I kind of focused on, preparing and getting ready for, that moment. So I just kind of separated myself from that. But I watched it on TV. While I was there watching it on TV, but I didn't go to many events while I was there. No. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. Spain is beautiful. Barcelona particularly.
Yeah, you competed in Olympic Games in Seoul, South Korea, and Barcelona, Spain. So compare what those two cities were like.
Yeah, so Korea was interesting. I remember there's this little town or city called Itaewon, right, in Korea, and we did a lot of shopping in Itaewon, a lot of custom-made suits and shoes, and I wanted to get a custom bear coat, like a bear. Anyway, my teammate Danny Evers talked me out of it, but I did get some shoes made, and they hurt my feet. I got some suits made, but Korea was cool. I mean, it was the village more so because I actually stayed in the village in Korea, and then from a kid coming from South Central to be in an environment where you have these athletes, different backgrounds, different nationalities, all in one place was incredible, right? So every night, and this is in Korea, before my race, I would put my Walkman on, which cassette and all that, right? Old school. And I would walk the village and I would listen to these people speaking their own native tongue. And I'm thinking, wow, I feel like I'm walking around the world in one night,
Yeah.
And that was, our goal was like, it was nothing about like any issues or politics. It was just, we were all there to be the best at what we do and to win medals for our country, and so it was just a different experience, and so I remember that, which is why I think I liked Korea the most, because it's my first, and it was that experience in the village. Now, Spain and Barcelona is a whole nother story. I mean, Spain is great, obviously, but I think I love Korea more, just because of my experience there, being my first, and just that whole, being younger. And at that time, I went to Barcelona. I had already been to Europe a lot, competing internationally, and so yeah, Korea was new, and it was different. My first international, really. Yeah.
Just give us a little feedback about '92. You have been injured. You changed coaches. You were kind of like off the scene. He's not gonna make it. You had Butch. You had Quincy Watts came on the scene. You came back and won a silver medal, gold medal in the relay. Then you guys broke the world record in the relay. Just give a little feedback on that, because I know you. That was a long 4-year struggle for you. I look at like Steve came back strong, man. Like, you had the early success, and then you were injured, you were sick, and then Michael Johnson was coming on the scene, and just talk a little bit about that. I don't know if people know about that. And then you anchored the relay. Like I said, you broke the world record. Like, I thought the way you came back in Barcelona was just amazing.
It's crazy because I actually feel like I trained harder, because remember, I was a year off, so my body was not. I mean, that year from being sick in '90, I was a shell of my former self. I mean, I literally was not. I mean, I was starting from scratch, trying to build back up to make the '92 team, and then of course, I moved on and started with Joe Douglas. But yeah, it was hard coming back. I mean, I was training hard. I felt harder because I was trying to, make up for lost time because I was, after 90, I mean, I think even 91, after I got a little better, I got a little injured in 91. So 92 was a tough year. But I had my teammate Danny Everett. So the fact that I had someone that I could train with that, we ran together, it helped a lot. And if you remember, there was so much drama in '92 around Butch Reynolds.
Yes.
So
yeah, Supreme
Court. I actually wrote about this. Supreme Court. This is like kind of so '92, which was the allegations and him being accused of being on the drugs in '88. He fought the IAAF to get reinstated to run, and it was a big drama. He went to the Supreme Court, and so when the Olympic trials came around in '92, the Supreme Court said he could run, but they had no control over the IAAF, who was saying he couldn't run. So it was a back and forth at the trials. So here we are. We trained so hard to get to this point in the '92 for the '92 Olympics, and USA Track and Field was telling the athletes, even though the Supreme Court was saying he could run, US put him in there, but then IAAF was saying, well, if you run with Butch, you're contaminated and you won't be able to compete. So so we would literally warm up. Again, this was in New Orleans, by the way, hot. We'd warm up the quarter milers, and right before the race, they'd tell us, "Oh, you can't run today because they haven't made a decision yet." So it was a back and forth with the athletes. All the athletes would warm up. Then they said we couldn't run, and one day we had to run it back to back because we had to catch up. And then finally, in the final, they let Butch run. And so in this final, I mean, so Butch was in there, Quincy Watts was in there, Danny Everett, myself, and basically culminated to this big thing after all that drama. And, it was tough. I went out, my teammate Danny Everett actually won. And I took second, which I just wanted to get through that.
Danny ran fast.
Danny ran like a 43.7 or something. Yeah. But it's crazy because I remember Danny and we ran our rounds together, and I didn't race Quincy or Butch until the final, but Quincy and Butch ran together in the semi, and they killed each other. And so I think they both, I think Butch had something to prove, anyway, he went out and they ran. So come time to final, I think they were just jacked up. But I took second and Quincy took third. Fast forward, Danny was having Achilles problems that year. And he went to the Olympics, but he had to drop out because of his Achilles. Because of that, they put Michael Johnson on the mile relay. Now, there was a lot of drama behind the scenes, a lot of speculations on why that happened, why he was on the relay. Because Mike didn't run in the rounds, but the coaches decided to put him on the relay with us. And then if you remember, Mike didn't do that well in the 200. He was sick or something, but for them to still put him on that relay, we felt some kind of way, like, he's on here, but whatever. We got past that. And but I'd be curious to know what would have happened if Danny was healthy. Who would they have taken off that relay? So anyway, first leg was Andrew Valman. Quincy was second leg. Michael Johnson ran third leg, and I ran anchor leg in that mile relay. We won. We in '88 we tied the mile relay record from what they ran in '68. I was on that team. '92 we broke our '88 record. So that was
funny you saying it about Michael Johnson because he ran the slowest split. Not that
he did. He
ran, like you saying the controversial. And you guys broke the record by a lot, but that's when he was coming off that sickness, or he hadn't been running before because he split like a 44 high, and you guys were all like Bauman was 44 low, and you and Quincy were like 43
lows. Yeah. I mean, we had another healthy Michael would have probably been a lot faster, obviously, but. Even if they inserted someone else in there, it would have been. But it was crazy because when they were trying to figure out who to put on the relay when Danny was out, everybody from other distances was like, well, put me on. I remember Kevin Young said, I'll run.
Kevin Young. That's what I was thinking. Why wasn't Kevin Young out
there? Mark Everett, I'll run. Everybody said, I want to spot him. Like, nah, man. And we had now though, so it's crazy because now these coaches have the feeling you may not see a quarter miler like open in the race in that relay. Right? They have more flexibility on who they will put in. You may not even run that event, and they'll put you on a relay. Sydney, obviously, she could run.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say
thing, but they, hey, it's about putting the best team, which but you're not guaranteed a spot. Compete in an individual event, a relay. If you're not, you're not guaranteed. Not now.
Funny because you said that with just the women, you had Sydney.
Oh yeah.
You had Athingwu, you had Allison. Yeah. You might have had 1 or 2 true quarter milers. I coached the national team in Spain and the junior national team. We almost broke the record. But I remember I put a quarter miler on there, Aldrich Bailey, and people said, "Are you crazy?" I said,
yeah.
And they were like, "You got to put 100-meter guy." I said, "Look, this dude runs 10.2, wind aided, 20.5, 45 flat." I said, "With a flying start, he's gonna kill all y'all." I said, "You can tell me what you want to tell me, but I'm running him." To me, he was Steve Lewis.
Yeah, that's funny.
So.
Yeah, so you never know.
Yep.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. Never know. Yeah, you never know.
So talk more about what you did after the 92 Olympics, the rest of your professional career.
So, the Olympics down, and I had a desire to run the intermediate hurdles, but I was wanting to focus on the 400 meters, and I wanted to try something different. That was kind of what my plan was. And 93 came around, and I was training. I think I had some injuries a little bit. And that's just track. We're always on that edge. But in 94, I was living in the Valley in Los Angeles. That was the year of the 94 earthquake. And I remember being awakened by shaking. My house started shaking and everything. And at 4 a.m, I got up, did what you're not supposed to do during an earthquake. And I tried to run to get out the house. I slipped, fell on my tailbone. And at the time, I didn't realize what I'd done. And I was I was training well. I was having some good training sessions up to that point. But after that fall, I was getting injured a lot. And I remember I was set to race Michael Johnson at this meet in Virginia, an indoor meet that March. But I was off. I remember training, I kept cramping. And I remember racing Michael in that race. And, I took it out first lap, I led, and I was getting all of a sudden my back started locking up, my legs, I didn't know what was going on with me. And Mike ultimately got me at the end, but I'm thinking, well, maybe it was just, a bad race. I kept training that year, and I kept getting injured. Ended up going to a spine doctor, a neurosurgeon, and he did an X-ray and an MRI, and he found that I had like a cyst on my sacrum, and he figured it was causing some nerve problems. And I ultimately had a back surgery on that. Tried to run again, didn't work. Went back to the doctor. He did another MRI, saw that my disc level L5S1 was black, so it was collapsed. So ultimately, I had to get a fusion, anterior fusion, where they put screws in my back, and that's what ended my running career in my prime. One slip and fall.
Wow. I remember the Northridge earthquake. I was a college student at CSUN. So
that Northridge, yeah.
Before you talk about 4 o'clock in the morning being scared.
I didn't know what, and I was, it was
like the world was coming to an end.
The world was coming to the house. The shaking, it was shaking all day. Yeah, it was.
And I've been part of earthquake, you have too. But that was, I tell people, that was something that was unreal.
That was tough. That was tough. And I'm in my prime, right? I'm 25, right? I was planning on trying to get to at least, 1 or 2 more Olympics, right? I felt like I had a lot more left. And but that was it. That ended my running career. Yeah.
So the doctor said you couldn't run, or you just kind of felt it, like you said you got screws?
Well, so the back is, that in general is just going to jack you up. But when you put hardware in your body like that,
Yeah.
it's I mean, you can probably get away with it with team sports, but individual sports where it affects your gait, right? I mean, just how you run. I just wasn't the same, and I tried, couldn't do it. It just and my back was just locked up, and I just wasn't moving the same. I lost a step or two or three, and and we're talking milliseconds. I mean, it was different. I couldn't do it anymore. But that was it. That was it.
So talk about your post-playing career and what that transition was like.
So the challenge with athletes in general, you never really leave your sport on your terms. You either get injured or something, or you get old, or somebody's, there's a faster, stronger person in lane 2 ready to take you out, right? So it's particularly in my case, because that pivot was tough, because it just got, I didn't expect it, right? So what do you do? I mean, I thought I'd be running at least another 4 years. Yeah. So I tried some things. I started a clothing line, and I was working at a school, working with some kids for a while, still trying to figure it out. Ultimately, I landed in the medical device. I worked for a company in medical device sales, equipment for surgery, and I've been doing that for a couple of decades or so. But you just never know what you're going to get into. And I didn't know. I wasn't thinking about it at that time. And then, fortunately, I got into a nice field, pretty good field.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of what you said is perfect. We've been interviewing a lot of athletes and NFL players and stuff, and they all say, like, I wasn't ready to retire. It just hit you.
Yeah.
And I just watched the Barry Sanders, the new documentary that came out last week. I loved it. And, he said, I was at the top of my career, and I kind of knew my body was going away, and I just knew where I was going with the team. We weren't going to Super Bowl, and I just said, I'm gonna walk away right here.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a plan, because it's hard. Like you said, you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
I always teach athletes who I work with, who are pros and stuff. I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do when you're like I tell my NFL players, it stands for not for long. NFL.
Yeah, not for long. That's funny.
Not for long. It makes a lot of money. You do this, but you have to be prepared, because that paycheck stops.
Yeah, true.
That grind stops, and you're so invested in the sport, or baseball, whatever track. You're so invested, and all of a sudden it goes away. So you have to be like, okay, you really got to be like, what am I doing when I'm done? What am I going to do when I'm done?
True. You never know, but you got to try something.
No, absolutely. That's a good. You said that you picked a good one, so that was great.
Yeah.
2004, you were inducted into UCA Athletics Hall of Fame and the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 2019. So talk about what it felt like being honored with such distinguishing accomplishments.
No, that's great. I mean, when you feel, obviously after, it's funny when you stop competing, your fans move on to, the next person. You feel like, they broke up with you, right? And so it's kind of nice when it comes back around full circle and you're appreciated and you get inducted. So I got in the UCLA Athletic Hall of Fame, and then USA Track and Field. So it was a great feeling, right? Because I think about how I started with the Los Angeles Jets, right? So this was something that I dedicated my life to, right? And I was able to be, the best at what I did, and I felt like, was recognized and appreciated once I was inducted in the Hall of Fame. So, great feeling. And then your family's there, and they can experience it with you when you're getting inducted, and people say nice things about you, and you say nice things about them, and that road you took to get there. But I mean, that's just kind of where it culminated, right? Okay, I'm done. That was the final chapter, at least in my athletic career. But I definitely appreciated it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say this, I've seen Steve move forward. I'm 49 years old. I don't know how old Steve is. I'm turning 50, and I never thought about 50. And you look at this guy is slow. This guy's in shape. Talk to these people. You do foosball. Like, I see him at the track. Steve Lewis being humble. But this dude could probably, two guys I see out there that could kill it and go beat Willie Galt, Steve Lewis. Man.
Oh, Willie looks great. Yeah, Willie looks great.
So you talk about what you're doing. You training or you doing master? Because when I see, mate, look at you. You got the guns out. The gun show's going on.
Yeah, still ready, so I don't have to get ready. You know,
That's right.
I think it's funny because I never really stopped with the whole fitness and health. I mean, that's kind of what I'm all about, health and wellness and fitness. But, you know, when I didn't leave the sport on my terms, and I'm just like, and it's just something that just burns inside me. I got to just get after it, right? And I think if I didn't have this back problem, you know, I'd probably run masters. I mean, I did get challenged to a race by some cat in Texas. Roy Martin challenged me to a race a couple of years ago. He didn't want to race, but we were going to compete. We were going to run a 400, and he wasn't trying to do that. But I was getting ready for that. I was ready. I was ready for him, but he didn't want this. He didn't.
Yeah, Steve's being humble. I understand this dude is track in the morning. This dude is over here killing the 20-year-olds. I'm sorry, you millennials and Gen, whatever you this dude got you beat.
Yeah, you gotta stay at it, man.
Yeah, he said, stay ready. You don't got to get ready.
Stay ready. You don't have to get ready. That is so true, man. I live by that. It's a mindset.
I appreciate it. This has been phenomenal on our end, just to share. We try to share this with coaches and athletes, and just just from your youth career, the adversity you went through, the Olympic gold medal. This has been a great story. So thank you.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again. You've had an amazing career, and I really enjoyed hearing your story as well.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.